All right, welcome back to Conversations with Troy. And Troy, I heard that you met the Pope. No, you visited the Pope. You met the Pope.
I visited with the Pope.
Okay.
I'm going to say it like that, and I'll tell you the story. Sitting in my office one day, in the mail, all at once, this letter arrives from the National Conference of Catholic Bishops.
Nice.
And I opened it thinking, somebody's asking for money,
donation?
maybe, or
Exactly.
always, you do, you receive
of
so
course.
much.
Yeah.
You think they're calling, and it was Dear Reverend Elder Troy Perry. The National Conference of Catholic Bishops would like to invite you to be a part of His Holiness John Paul II's first visit to America.
Wow.
We are preparing to have a meeting with Protestants in Columbia, South Carolina. And we would like to invite you to process in, come be our guest, process in with all the clergy, and, in this city. And I looked at it, and Dave, I thought it was a joke.
Do they know who I am?
Yeah. I'm thinking, oh my God, some gay person who works for the National Conference of Catholic Bishops said,
Slipping you
oh,
in.
let's add Reverend Perry to the list. And I couldn't help it, in my head.
Yeah.
But I looked at it, and here was paperwork I had to fill out to make sure that I could get through the Secret Service and get through the National Guard post.
Right.
When I arrived in South Carolina, they told me what hotel that they had set aside places. We would have to pay for the hotel,
Yeah.
but that's the way it is when I go to the White House
Of
too.
course,
So
yeah.
for me, it didn't mean a lot. And then as I finished their paperwork, they said, we invite you to bring one other person from your communion to be a part of His Holiness's visit. And
Who'd you
I
bring? Nancy?
immediately thought, who do I want to carry with me? And like I said, I'm a feminist too.
Right.
And beyond that, I wanted them to see a woman in collar. And Reverend Elder Nancy Wilson was the person I decided I want Reverend Wilson to go with me to visit with the Pope. I want the Roman Catholic Church to see women in collars, and
a woman that knows how to speak.
And a woman who knows how to speak too.
Very well.
And to if she had to defend the faith, she could.
Absolutely.
And so Nancy and I, they also said, you're invited to the bilateral dialogue between the Roman Catholic Church and the Lutheran Church in America. Oh. And Nancy was our ecumenical officer for the denomination. There was another reason I wanted her to go, because she was dealing with the National Council of Churches. And that's another whole story we'll tell one day. But she and I, we talked, and I caught up with her, and I caught up with the church. And I said, when I arrived out at the airport, Nancy always dressed, but she always wore slacks.
Right.
And all at once, I arrive at the airport, and here is Nancy in high heels, and
And a skirt?
And a skirt and dress, and I went, and she said, don't you say a word. She said, I had to sacrifice to come on this trip. And I said, why? What happened? And she said, I had to shave my legs for the first time. And she told me, like 15 years.
Did Paula put her
And
up to this?
I have no idea if her partner put her up to it or not. But, we're going to be with our Catholic friends, and we had received this invitation. And I immediately said to her, well, you didn't have to do that. She said, you don't know what hairs look like sticking out of pantyhose. I said, oh, yes, I do. I said, Halloween in the gay community when I was younger. I said, we've all done it once or twice like that, cutting up. And we flew in, and Nancy, it was so important for me to have her there because I knew if we had to deal with the other clergy, she would be the one, because she was working with the National Council,
Right.
that would know how to do it. She would also be great in front of the bilateral dialogue with the Lutherans.
Right.
And that was a small group. There was only 120 people invited to that. So when we arrived and got into our hotel, and the next day we went to the stadium, I at first, when they had mentioned the National Guard, I couldn't figure out why are they doing this. The Roman Catholics had picked this state with the least Catholics. Only 3% of South Carolina are Roman Catholics, or were back then.
Right.
The Baptist Church and the Methodist Church are the two biggest
Big, strong,
churches.
you're right.
And it's Baptist churches everywhere. And there were people who didn't like having the Pope there. He was supposed to meet with all these Protestant leaders, including
The Baptists.
the head of the Southern Baptists and the Assemblies of God, the largest Pentecostal denomination in America.
Right.
Of course, neither one of them showed up for the meeting. And we're waiting when all at once, as we're in the back, the Protestants, Nancy and I had said, I will keep my mouth shut unless somebody says something
Right.
derogatory about gay folks. And then, you know me, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut, so
Right.
be prepared. We're all at once getting ready. We're putting on our robes. You know, they had several places for people to robe. We Protestants in one area, the Catholics and the Orthodox in another, because they still, even though they separated 1,500 years ago, they still try to at least talk to each other and to hold meetings. So it always hasn't been successful for
Right.
them. But the Protestants, we're in the room. I'm putting on my robes. I finished putting on my vestments. And Nancy's got hers on. There's one thing we decided to wear. We said we're going to wear a button. Here we are in the middle of AIDS. And this button says, God is greater than AIDS.
Right.
Universal Fellowship Metropolitan Community Churches.
I have one of those buttons.
And I do too.
Yeah.
In my button collection, it's fixing to go to a museum,
Nice.
the one museum and archives here
Cool.
in Los Angeles. And we put on the buttons. Well, all at once, one of the Protestant ministers comes over to us and says, what does your button say? God is greater than AIDS. I mean, I couldn't believe the response. And I was just shocked that, and I thought people were more sophisticated than that. But it was
Mature than that.
mature and sophisticated.
Yeah.
Even if they're, you know, and he jumped back and walked away from us. Next thing I know, another Protestant minister comes up and says to me, how did you get in here? Now, I'm from the South, and here again, bad manners don't work with me.
Right.
And immediately, and I'm going to say exactly what I said when he said it. I said, what do you mean, how did I get in here? He said, how did you get in here? I said, I was invited like the rest of you. I don't believe that. That's calling me a liar.
Yeah.
Now, when you call me a liar,
That's-
if I've lied, I'm going to be very contrite and just say I lied.
Yeah.
I've been caught in a lie, if that's
Yeah.
it. But I had not, you know, I said,
You got
I
invited.
was so upset I didn't know what to do. And I said, let me explain it to you in language you'll understand. I said, the Roman Catholic Church, the mother church of Christendom, has invited all the bastards back home. They don't give a shit if you're a gay bastard or a heterosexual one. I said, they've just invited all the bastards back home. With that, he ran away from me. I mean, I was getting loud. But Dave, it really upset me that someone would do that. The Roman Catholic bishops were wonderful.
Right.
Nancy and I We went, of course, we processed then. Now, I had met a African American woman who was her husband was the president of the International Theological Seminary in Atlanta, Georgia. That is a historical conglomeration of black denominations.
Okay.
Pentecostal, Baptist, Methodist, they're all there together. Her husband's Presbyterian, and he was the president of the school. She and I just hit it off,
Nice.
and she was one of the few people of color there, you know what I mean,
Right.
that were in that process then.
Oh, okay.
And she was representing that university. They invited a few academics to go in with us too.
Nice.
And so she and I were just yakking. And I told her, I said, I'll be fine. But I said, if the Pope says anything against gay folks, I'm going to have to speak up. Well, what was his sermon text? The story of Ruth and Naomi. And that was the sermon text he preached on family. And I thought, oh my God, maybe we're going to have a breakthrough here.
Yeah.
We're part of the family. They've invited, Nancy and I, at least, we're the only ones open about who we are, but there are others here.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew some of the bishops. I looked over to see where Nancy was at. She was in the middle of the Greek Orthodox, who voted against us later for our membership in the National Council of Churches. But here was Nancy, the female in collar, right with the bishops as they processed them. And it was an incredible service to be in, 75,000 people.
Wow.
And at the end of the service, all at once, I'm thinking, Lord, there's got to be other gay folks here. I wish, I knew other folks were here. And about that time, my God, I think it was 2 women. It could have been 2 men. But in the topmost part of that, walked over to the rail and threw a gay pride flag over the rail, holding it. And I immediately went, oh! The Catholics thought I was having an apparition of the Virgin Mary.
Maybe you were.
Maybe I
you
was.
were.
But there was that flag.
Right.
And after they had a reception with us, the bishops did, and they couldn't have treated us not like the Protestants. They
Right.
were just as great as they could be. The next day, Nancy went to the meeting and of the dialogue between the Lutherans, and she told me what happened, that it was a good meeting. And Ratzinger was the person traveling with the Pope, and he presented Nancy, for both of us, a medal from the Pope.
Wow.
And his own medal, and Cardinal Ratzinger's medal.
Nice.
And so I have it framed, the Pope, the letter, and also I have the one from him who became the future Pope,
Right.
Benedict. And so I have those, and it was an incredible time. And I thought, because we were invited to that quickly the Roman Church would start their movement.
Quickly?
And, well, I know churches are slow. It's the way the Christian church is.
Right.
Sometimes it takes 1,000 years to change some
Right.
doctrine. But it was just that incredible visit. And then Philip and I, in the year 2000, I wrote the Vatican and asked if we could have a general audience with His Holiness, be a part of that. And they wrote me back and said, yes, Reverend Perry, there will be an invitation waiting for you. And I introduced myself, and that I and Mr. DeBleek would be coming. And we were part of the general audience in the 2000th anniversary of Christianity.
Wow.
With His Holiness, again, John Paul II, before he passed away.
Right. Wow. Well, thank you again. Interesting stories.
Well, thank you, Dave, again for permitting me to tell them to you.
Absolutely. All right. Join us again with Conversations with Troy. Thank you.